gathered friends. Listen again.
There was a shitty movie called Legend Reborn. Let's review it.
First things first, why now? It would be one thing to skip 3 years of story like this did, but these were the 3 biggest years in Bionicle's history. The search for the Mask of Life and the real awakening of the Great Spirit. And the intro does fuck all to inform newcomers about all this. All the uninformed would get is a giant robot being maintained by a bunch of little people woke up, got possessed by an unnamed evil, and fired a face from its crotch into space. I get that this is a visual medium and you can often say more with actions than with words, but since there's still talking going on in this introduction anyways, I think a quick little exposition legend like in the first 3 movies was called for here.
As such, I'll provide a recap for the uninformed.
While Taraga Bakama was busy remembering the good old days, we learn that Madanui is dying, so the Toa and Uva try to find the Mask of Life, but they get their asses kicked by the Paraka, who are also after the mask. Our favorite McDonald's Matoran, plus the token girl of Matoran Tony Stark, become Toa and defeat the Paraka as well as Vizon, the guardian of the Mask of Life. The mask slips their grasp and it drops into the dark depths of Mari Nui, where the mutated warlords known as the Baraki are at each other's throats to get the mask. The Toa get the mask, but Madanui ends up dead, so Motoro sacrifices himself to the graveyard to summon Madanui's life back. The Toa will return in near unrecognizable forms and battle the Makutas. Yeah, that Makuta guy we saw was actually a member of a species named Makuta. And this guy's actual name? Pterodax. On one hand, it's intimidating and fitting of such a ruthless madman. On the other hand, our great villain can be called Terry, and it reeks of made-up villainy.
I don't mind it, but simply calling him the Makuta has a more sinister and threatening vibe to it, you know?
I'm getting off track here. So after several plot twists that turn the entire Bionicle world on its head, including the true nature of the Borak and the Suicide Squad knockoff, the Great Spirit is reawakened. But Pterodaxel takes control of Madanui's body, puts Madanui's spirit in the Mask of Life, and ejects into outer space, dooming the entire Matoran universe.
You got all that? Good. Because none of it will matter for the rest of the movie. Oh, that's why. My point still stands!
Since this scene lacks the context, it's nowhere near as impactful. Even knowing the context doesn't really help matters, as it's comparably unimportant to the rest of the film. Alright, let's ignore that. After all, continuity shouldn't be that big an issue if the film itself is enjoyable on its own merits. The first 2 films did that alright. Let's see if this film does just that. After the Mask of Life flees into the unsubtle galaxy, it starts to form a body, revealing our main protagonist, Matanui himself. This leads into the reason why I took back my model criticism from the first movie. The characters in this film are almost part for part the same as the sets. As I said when I took back the criticism in movie 2, the characters of the Bionicle universe are more akin to cyborgs with organic aspects to their biology, and the toys don't convey that very well. It's actually worse here since the characters we'll eventually meet are supposed to be mostly organic, which might explain why they all have teeth. But to the movie's credit, the models do look very nice. There's a lot of attention to detail when it comes to bringing these toys to life, and if I can take anything from this experience, it's that the characters are pretty to look at. Not to mention we have more than one notable cast member, starting with Michael Dorn, aka Worf from Star Trek, as the Great Spirit himself. Speaking of, he comes across a little beetle that becomes his shield, literally, before Vorox initiates a battle sequence. After Vorox shows how fragile the connector pieces were in those sets, which also adds questions to their biological nature, we—
Wait! Play that scene with the Vorox escaping! Are you fucking kidding me? I have that sound effect! I should not have this film's sound library!
So the beetle decides it likes Madanui, and we meet another important character, an Agori named Metis. He takes them to a lava pit, where we witness a Glatorian match between Strack, voiced by Jeff Bennett, and Akar, voiced by Jim Cummings.
If the latter sounds familiar to you, you might have seen a few good animated projects here and there, because he's almost everywhere in the animated scene.
And you can clearly see that their budget was well spent on those spinning pins, as the clucking audience consists of clones of a character we'll be meeting very shortly, Ranu, and Metis. Come on, even the old movies had the decency to apply different masks on the Matoran. We then meet Ranu, who assumed Metis brought Madanui to be Akar's replacement. However, Akar proves he still has some fight in him despite his age by defeating Strack. Strack goes back on his yield and chooses to attack Akar while his back is turned, prompting Madanui to show why he'd make a good Street Fighter character. Strack starts to kick Madanui's ass until, by accident, the Ignika improves the Vorox stinger into a mighty sword, giving Madanui the upper hand.
I believe there's a name for this in a battle of skill and honor like a gladiator fight. It's called cheating.
To his credit, Strack broke the rules already and brought this onto himself, so I suppose I can't complain.
Don't.
Screw this! I'm going into the supermarket industry! Motunui and Akar discuss the life of a warrior, and Motunui explains his motivation: to return to his homeland and regain his place as the great spirit robot from Terigillium. We then meet another major character, Kina, who believes that Motunui is proof that life does exist out in the stars and there are better places than Barra Magna.
Kina's delusional. There's no such thing as other worlds. Yeah, well, he proves it. Woohoo!
Anyone can say they came from another planet. What makes his case so special? His mask?
Well, yeah, but she hasn't seen it yet as far as we know.
Let me guess. You call him Click. Hey, I was just kidding.
I like it. Click it is.
Short, sweet, rolls off the tongue. Ladies love it.
Kina tells Motunui and Akar about a cavern in her village that contains weapons and they travel there.
The Glatorian are heading for Tejun. You know what to do.
Ah, shit! Alana's in this movie!
On their way to Tejun, as they call it, they run into a Scopio, a creature with tank treads as part of its biology.
We should turn back. Can't. They're even deadlier.
I find it hard to believe that a few Agori riding starved velociraptors are deadlier than a giant arachnid tank hybrid.
I'm not doubting them as a threat, I'm just saying that they think an army of dogs are worse than the Indominus Rex.
Motunui manages to defeat the Scopio Shadow of the Colossus style, proves he would make a great character in a Tony Hawk game,
Is Motunui's only role in this film to make me want to play better games?
and joins up with Akar and Kina, who then make it safely to Tejun, which they find devastated.
Huh, so the last film wasn't the only Bionicle film to rub off Star Wars.
We then meet Gresh, and the leader of the antagonistic Skrull tribe, Tuma, voiced by the Hulk himself, Fred Tashior. Our heroes evade his notice and discover a secret cave where all the planet's former resources have been relocated to. They then encounter...
Okay, look, everything's okay. It's just me, Barracks.
Oh, God, Titus!
Listen to my story.
No! Fuck you! Fuck your story! It sucks!
Actually, this is Barracks, voiced by James Earl Taylor. And needless to say, it's not a good way to make us like a character when even one of our primary characters hates his guts.
Why do you speak against the great beings?
Because they wrecked our world, that's why. This was Barra Magna, before the great beings left us here to rot.
Barra Magna was Lakoro?
They discover some runes about the Great Spirit Robot and return to the village proper, deciding to warn the other villages about the Skrull and Bone Hunters working together. But not before Motunui upgrades their weapons. They dick around with their new powers for a bit before they arrive at the Wind Village, where another Glatorian match is going on between two characters who are unimportant to the plot, so I won't even bother naming them. Our heroes warn the villagers about the aforementioned alliance, but the understandable panic causes Akar to show off his new powers.
Damn it, if only I didn't use the He-Man joke in the Mask of Light review.
Motunui upgrades the blue guy's weapons, but then Akar says this.
I will not pretend I have anything left to teach you.
What the fuck do you mean? Before you all left Tejun, you said you could teach Motunui everything you know. All you did end up teaching him was to read your opponent's body language like a video game boss. Is that really all an old, wise warrior has to offer? No wonder the Agori wanted you replaced. Kina finds Barracks snooping as usual in Scar's lair, and both end up captured by the Skrull. Menace and Ranu tell the Glatorian about this, and Motunui decides to fight the Skrull alone, leaving the other Glatorian behind to defend the Agori.
Thank God this film's main character is fucking smart.
Motunui arrives at the Skrull's arena, and it seems that Tuma is also using stock sound effects. Oh hey look! Engo's mascot makes his big cinematic debut here. And much like the last time Motunui fought in the arena, Tuma has the upper hand at first.
Did this pathetic weakling really believe he could bring down the mighty Tuma?
If you don't tone that voice down, it's almost like going to have a mighty Tuma.
Luckily for Motunui, Tuma has the most obvious weak point a bulky character like Tuma can have: the back. Once he falls, we get the big plot twist of the film. Metis was the traitor the whole time. You see, the Glatorian came to the conclusion that there's a traitor amongst the villages of Barra Magna, which is why the Skrull are as big of a threat as they are. Kina suspected that it was Barracks, but as we see, that's clearly not the case. To the film's credit, the twist is relatively well foreshadowed, unlike in the first film, and while some parts are a tad obvious, it's not as contradictory as the second film's big reveal, nor as forced as the third film's. But why did he do it?
You'd lead them against your own people?
What have the Agori ever done for me?
That never gets elaborated upon. It could mean he got abused by them, or he could have been ignored because of other duties, and considering he's what's essentially the Glatorian manager, it's not like he's living a life of hell. At least compared to everyone else.
A vague one-off line of dialogue like that does not give a coherent motivation.
Oh, and speaking of cop-outs, a bunch of those beetles form a mass that resemble the character Malum, who is otherwise completely absent from this film. Which is a shame because he was actually a really cool character. Hell, they could have made him the traitor they were building up to if they had established him in the film beforehand. But no, we get the little ice guy.
You know what? Let's just get this over with.
Mananui frees Kita in barracks, the Malum construct falls apart, the other Glatorian arrive to help, Mananui catches up with Metis and turns him into a snake, Mananui reunites with the Glatorian and they combine their powers into a rainbow laser that defeats the Skrull and Bone Hunters completely, everyone overlooks a construction that reveals parts to the prototype Great Spirit robot, and this sets up the sequel that never came because LEGO thought it would be a good idea to abruptly cancel the line the following year.
But if that sequel was anything like this film, I think that was for the best.
While the animation is rather nice to look at, I do like how they wrote Mananui, and the voice cast all do their jobs well enough. The environments, while colorful, are bland tribal backdrops with no personality. The plot brings up points that don't matter in the grand scheme of things and feels all over the place. It's not very friendly to newcomers, the villains are weak, the writing isn't very memorable, the characters are forgettable archetypes if they're not downright annoying to some, and the action isn't that impressive when it's not resembling much better video games. I suppose there's no harm in watching it once, but it's certainly not a good movie when compared to the other three, let alone a decent film in its own right. While they're not the best movies, the past three movies always felt like there was some effort put into the most important areas of the film, the writing and the characters, and they managed to keep an uninformed audience invested while appealing to the fans. Mask of Light had its issues like the worthlessness of the toe until the climax, the plot twists, lack of foreshadowing, and Taganuva's asshole revival at the end, but I still love it. It's quotable, subtle, well-paced, and enjoyable all the way through. It's a staple of my childhood. Legends of Metronui had more glaring issues than the last film, particularly with its gaping plot holes, useless MacGuffin, and awkward pacing, but it still manages to have good voice work, memorable scenes, well-developed characters, and solid execution of most of its tropes. Web of Shadows wasn't as solid as the prior two films with its forced plot twist, bleak visuals, and unimpressive action, but it still had some effort thrown in with enjoyable villains and a good sense of humor. I'll only remember this film as the weakest one, which is a shame. I was expecting to find more things to like about this film, realize it wasn't as bad as I thought it was the last time I saw it. But that didn't happen here. But hey, 2 out of 4 ain't bad.
And that covers all the Bionicle films. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoyed the ride. I'm TransformersFanco328 and I think I realized why this film wasn't as good as the other ones. It wasn't Shakespeare!